This is Trunews Headlines. I'm Doc Burkhart.
And I'm Kerry Kinsey. It's Monday, December 2nd, 2019. And these are your uncensored news headlines. President Trump is blasting Democrats for launching the next phase in their impeachment inquiry just as he was scheduled to be overseas at a NATO meeting. The president, who is headed to the meeting in the UK, has already said he'll not participate in that hearing, nor will his attorneys. The commander-in-chief calls the impeachment process a sham.
And the next phase of the impeachment process is now underway. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff's staff presented a draft of the impeachment inquiry report. Members of the panel will take a vote on the document Tuesday. With the Democrats controlling the House, its passage is considered all but assured. The House Judiciary Committee will then meet for the first time Wednesday, at which time the Intelligence Committee's report will be considered.
Well, before he left for London, the president spent the Thanksgiving holiday with his family at Mar-a-Lago. He also traveled to Afghanistan to visit with American troops stationed there. But that didn't keep Newsweek from spinning its own tall tale about the president's long holiday weekend.
Now, the president slammed the report, retweeting a link and asking, "I thought Newsweek was out of business." The magazine quickly threw out several different corrections before finally adding an editor's note that the original report was in error. Well, yeah, that's to say the least. The magazine later announced it had fired the reporter over failures that led to the publication of the inaccurate report.
At Doc, as you'd expect, CNN's media reporter Brian Stelter defended the original fake news article by Newsweek.
So they were talking about this reporter for Newsweek who wrote a story before the president landed in Afghanistan, basically surmising that Trump was actually just golfing and tweeting on Thanksgiving. So she put up her story. She updated it once everyone found out the president was actually in Afghanistan. But her original tweet here was lambasted by Trump supporters. And look, this was an error by Newsweek to assume that the president was just going to be golfing on Thanksgiving. But as a result, the Washington Examiner has fired this Newsweek reporter. It just strikes me that there's a lot of bad faith acting going on.
Well, this all comes amid a report that a Democrat strategist has been caught creating fake local news websites to pump out fake news in key battleground states that are intended to whittle away votes from President Trump's base of supporters. Tara McGowan has launched Courier Newsroom, a for-profit company that has begun rolling out digital newspapers in Arizona, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, Bloomberg says the $25 million company is funded by wealthy liberals. It's creating digital news articles that look like they came from an ordinary local newspaper. The goal is to use those stories to influence voters by getting them to spread on social media. Now, the report says McGowan is targeting the 80,000 swing state voters Hillary Clinton was missing in 2016.
Oh, they finally found them, huh, Kerry?
Yes.
Well, but a new poll says the president's base is as solid as ever. In fact, the Economist YouGov weekly tracking poll found that a majority of Republicans say President Trump is a better leader than, get this, Kerry, Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
But not quite better than Ronald Reagan. Can't beat that one. His current approval rating within his own party, despite impeachment swirling around him, is nearly 90%. Now, among non-Republicans polled in the survey, Lincoln remains more popular by a margin of 3-1.
Doc, here's an interesting statistic. Only 2 House Democrats are against their party's decision to push for impeachment. One is Colin C. Peterson of Minnesota. The other is Jefferson Van Drew of New Jersey. Now, he finds the president to be a bit unsavory, but says he's done nothing that rises to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors.
In fact, Congressman Van Drew slammed a small elite group within his own party that he said is attempting the impeachment coup against President Trump. He called it not only unfathomable, but also un-American. He has been slammed by other Democrats for keeping a framed photo of himself with President Trump on his wall, a keepsake from their first face-to-face meeting back in 2008. That's when the would-be president came to Atlantic City to cut the ribbon on a new hotel tower at his Taj Mahal casino. Well, for the latest in news and information from a Christian worldview, there's only one source that you need to go to, and that's Trunews.com. This is Trunews Headlines.
Listen to the Bible from Philippians 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. Present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you.
Well, welcome back to Trunews Headlines. We have an update on some of the violence that we saw over this weekend. Carrie?
Well, Doc, London police responded to another terror attack. This time, a teenage boy was sprayed with acid at the Borough Market. Now, the victim didn't suffer any injuries. It happened on High Street, just a couple of blocks from where a knife attack occurred on London Bridge. Jason Albano has more about that.
The families of the two people killed in London on Friday have released heartfelt tributes. Saskia Jones and Jack Merritt were fatally stabbed in an attack on London Bridge. They were involved in a prisoner rehabilitation conference, which their attacker had also been attending. The family of Jones said the 23-year-old had a wonderful thirst for knowledge and a great passion for providing invaluable support to victims of criminal injustice. Merritt's family described him as thoughtful and empathetic while working towards helping people in the criminal justice system. They also said the 25-year-old would not want the attack, quote, to be used as a pretext by the government for introducing even more draconian sentences on prisoners or for detaining people in prison for longer than necessary. The attacker, identified as Usman Khan, had been convicted of terrorism in 2012 but was let out early. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Sunday he would strengthen prison sentences and boost security in the wake of Friday's attack. Johnson called it a terrorist act.
Now, the attack likely would have been much deadlier had it not been for the quick thinking of three bystanders. Now, some unusual circumstances here. One grabbed a fire extinguisher, shooting it at the attacker, while the second held him at bay with a narwhal tusk he had grabbed off the wall of a nearby bar. Yes, you heard that right. The third wrestled the attacker's knife away from him, allowing others to pile on until a police arrived and eventually shot him dead. Although the attacker had connections to al-Qaeda, ISIS claimed the attack was carried out in its name.
And later that night, a 35-year-old Dutch man was arrested for a stabbing attack at a market in The Hague. 3 teenagers were seriously wounded. Now, video from the scene showed shoppers running in a panic through the streets of the Christmas market. ISIS has claimed responsibility.
An estimated 5,000 demonstrators gathered in Tel Aviv's Habima Square to demand a strong democracy, strong Israel, through the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, although it was large, it was dwarfed by protests earlier last week at which the leader's supporters demanded the criminal prosecution of those investigating him.
Yeah, Doc, Prime Minister Netanyahu says he talked by phone with President Trump and talked about the possibility of annexing the Jordan Valley and appeared to suggest Washington was not against the step. At a ceremony for 12 new factories to be built in the Ashkelon's industrial zone, the PM said there were historic opportunities that must be seized. He called on rival blue and white leader Benny Gantz to join a unity government that would advance the bid.
In addition to that, during the Monday groundbreaking ceremony, Mr. Netanyahu also said he and President Trump had discussed forging a permanent military pact between their countries. He added both countries will coordinate their military preparations for responding to the threat from Iran. Those are his words. Friday, a high-ranking general within Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps boasted that missiles were now aimed at 21 military bases in the Middle East.
Yeah, General Ali Nourillahi says his country was preparing for the greatest war against the greatest enemy. Deb Gafal reports the new U.S.-Israeli agreement followed visits by several high-profile American generals in Israel in recent weeks. Among them, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley Air Force Chief of Staff General David Goldfein and U.S. Central Command Chief General Kenneth McKenzie.
6 more EU countries have announced they are joining the French and German-led effort to circumvent U.S. sanctions on Iran. Belgium, Denmark, Finland, the Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden have all begun the process of joining the Instrument of Support of Trade Exchanges, or INSTEX. That system runs all trade around the U.S.-dominated global banking system in order to remain compliant with the 2015 nuclear deal. Now, the 6 countries are now demanding that Iran return to full compliance with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action immediately and halt all European enrichment activities.
Doc, by 2050, the U.S. military wants to have cyborg super soldiers. The U.S. Army's Combat Capabilities Development Command issued a report that says the Pentagon is already trying to create machine humans. They would have infrared and ultraviolet vision, ultra and subsonic hearing, superhuman strength and endurance, and mind-controlled weapons. The report claims one could argue that failure to invest in responsible development of these potentially life-saving technologies would be unethical.
Well, the Advent season has begun for Christian Church worldwide, and in Bethlehem, the celebration was even more jubilant this year. A shard of wood encased in silver and glass, which is said to be the last remains of the manger in which Jesus was born, was returned to the Church of the Nativity this week on orders of Pope Francis, who received a request from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Many Palestinian Christians turned out for the relic of the Holy Crib's return after 1,400 years.
Well, over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, there were several huge college football rivalry games. Even though that Alabama-Auburn game was a classic, it's what happened during the Ohio State-Michigan game that turned some heads. Listen to this announcer.
What a day for J.K. Dobbins. Absolute dominant performance from Dobbins and this offensive line.
J.K. Dobbins' mom, Maya, became pregnant when she was 18 years old. She went to the doctor because she was thinking about aborting the baby, but changed her mind. That baby turned out to be that young man, J.K. Dobbins, who she calls her miracle baby.
And miracles still happen, and they need to keep on happening, too.
Yep.
Well, each day on Trunews.com, we receive prayer requests from viewers and listeners just like you. We love to hear from you and join together with you for God to answer your prayers. And we pray over each of those requests on a regular basis. I'd like to share one of those with you right now. Dear Rick, I believe my sister is so close to becoming a Christian. I've shared my testimony with her. Her father-in-law was miraculously healed. He had growths on his lungs, and through prayer, they're all gone. My sister has noticed that I've been healed of my anxiety, and she wishes she was free from it. Her husband says if she ever becomes a Christian, he'll leave her. So I'm praying that they'll get saved at the same time. My 4-year-old niece wanted her to read a gospel tract that she got at the fair. So I really believe God is reaching out to my sister. This would be awesome, as I'm the only born-again Christian in my family. I'm one of 7, and it would be amazing for them all to get saved. Thank you for all that you do. I pray for you daily. Keep up the good work. God bless. That's from Susan.
Well, Susan, thank you for your prayers. No matter how impossible your family's situation may be, it's incredible what God can do. Invite Him into your family time. Ask Him to give you a chance to share the gospel. Pray for God to soften the hearts of family members and bring over a Christian friend when you do so, because Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them."
Visit Trunews.com and use the Trunews app on your smartphone to submit your own need for prayer. And be sure to visit Trunews.com for more about our headlines.
Yeah, and do us a favor, please like and share this edition of True News Headlines on your social media channels. Also, please visit TrueNews.com to find out how you can support our news efforts.
Thank you for joining us for True News Headlines. Stay tuned for our True News Godcast coming up later this evening. Correspondent and co-host Edward Zoll is in London, England as we speak, and will be giving us a live update on the arrival of President Trump to meet with the world leaders on the 70th anniversary of NATO. Edward is there all this week providing coverage. Also, a local FM radio station in Austin, Texas, issued some disturbing remarks about Trunews host and founder Rick Wiles. You need to hear what they said. You will be genuinely shocked. That's coming up later on tonight's Godcast. On behalf of Carrie Kinsey and the entire Trunews team, I'm Doc Burkhart for Trunews Headlines. God bless you.
God bless you.